Shelby, I mean, you don't know how the movies are going to do, right? Daredevil was a terrible movie and did poorly, but they have been putting out blockbuster after blockbuster on all of these franchises. It's kind of amazing news.
Yeah, one investor actually that talked to Bloomberg yesterday described the shareholders meeting as wild, because you just see that Disney continues to do everything right. They're appealing to the masses by expanding on these franchises that appeal to men, to women, to children. They're expanding globally. Iger talked a lot about this theme park in Shanghai. Movies are exploding in China. Makes perfect sense. They're also returning to their roots. The opening of Cinderella this weekend has Disney going back to its vault of fairy tales. This is, what Disney started out as, these classic films, and they could very well be launching a live-action platform with Cinderella. And Cinderella skews older. It's not, it's not little Frozen toys for kids. Cinderella has, as we just saw, Jimmy Choo shoes, MAC makeup, $500 necklaces. So Cinderella is speaking to a broader female audience, and when you appeal to this many people, you just can't really go wrong.
And those are some big numbers in terms of box office for these movies. Paul Dergarabedian joins us right now as well from Los Angeles, Rentrak senior media analyst, and a guy who does a great rendition of Let It Go. Paul, you want to belt one out?
I do.
No, please don't.
I'll defer on that. I'll save it for YouTube or something.
How does Disney do this so well? I mean, we've seen so many bombs over the years, and they've had their Lone Ranger, and they've had their John Carter, but it seems like these franchises are really performing for them.
This is incredible. What Disney is doing is creating like a 100-year plan, I call it. It is a legacy. I mean, by having these crown jewels, Lucasfilm, Pixar, of course, their Marvel superhero vertical, and now they're getting really into the whole, fairy tale, princess kind of area. They are just creating such a broad swath in terms of their audience appeal for all their various movies. And by these acquisitions of these various companies, and by internally going back to the vault for something like Cinderella, and then combining that with Frozen Fever, which they're putting at the front of Cinderella this weekend, which will bring in a lot of people, I think, just to see that 7-minute short. The power of the Disney brands are incomparable, and they've really set up this incredible strategy. Like Shelby was saying, when they make these announcements, you can feel the excitement in the room. And when they announced Frozen 2, Ellen DeGeneres was tweeting about it. Everyone's talking about it. You've got Star Wars. You've got Avengers Age of Ultron, which will kick off this summer in high style. That's the follow-up to the biggest opening weekend ever on the first Avengers, which opened with over $200 million. So it's just time after time, every franchise, the branding, it's the ancillaries as well. The international box office is huge. Stage shows, product placement, home video, big screen, small screen, you name it, Disney's just strategically planning for it.
Shelby, when we look at Star Wars by the numbers, just in terms of the performance of the original movies and then the subsequent movies, is there a suggestion that, after what do they pay for that, $4 billion for Lucasfilms, is there a suggestion that under Disney the movies are going to do better than they did when they were Fox properties?
I think people certainly want to see them do better. I was speaking to a few analysts yesterday, and they said Disney really does have to prove itself. They've acquired this wildly popular franchise. But one thing that I noticed when I was doing some research is that the top-grossing Star Wars film, adjusted for inflation, did not do as well in the global box office as Frozen. So Disney does have some work to do. Being under the Disney brand, I think that really gives people a lot of confidence. But as Paul was saying, too, it's not just about the launch of the movie, and this is what Disney does so well. Disney's focused on long-term revenue streams. They're focused on theme park rides, consumer products. The Frozen dolls, a year after the Frozen release, were still driving Disney's consumer product segment. So it's not just about how popular these movies can be, but, what kind of longevity they have for the brand, for the franchise.
Paul, I may be alone in this, but I'm often am. I think that box office is one of the stupidest metrics of measuring success, because it seems like it's really just a function of the marketing spend. Do you think that Disney, as you mentioned, is clever with the Frozen short ahead of the Cinderella movie to try to get the Cinderella movie some boost? Do you think that the spend on marketing will be a lot higher in the early editions of these films because, as Shelby mentions, they're really looking at the long term? So while the box office might be big, they're hoping big box office for the first movie will lead to free or cheaper box office for the second.
Yeah, well, you make a great point because it does cost a lot of a lot of money to get these movies in front of the audience and get them excited about it. But the thing is, the box office, that theatrical first run, does drive everything else. But you're right, they spend a lot of money on that first marketing push. And then these brands sort of take on a life of their own. And so in terms of at least getting the word out, they have to do that for that opening weekend and build that up. That's the first push. Then you have home video, which comes along, and that's a big deal too. And with a lot of these Disney properties, and particularly with like the classics, people like to own these. There's all this digital downloading and all that. That's very important. But people like to have these Disney movies in their physical collection. So it's such an amazing play for Disney with that brand. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the Marvel movies and how important that is. We're talking about billions of dollars long term, and it seems to be that for each of these verticals, for the superheroes, for the classic Disney tales, there is an inexhaustible audience, and the ability to spin off different characters. If you look at Captain America, the Winter Soldier, opened last April, huge numbers, over 90 million in that opening weekend. It just seems like time after time, and with this marketing, they're really building a long term, and audiences know these brands. And look at Guardians of the Galaxy. It was an untested title, but it was huge because it was Marvel.
In TV, and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fantastic machine they've got going across many platforms.